Welcome to Navigating the Mess with me, your host, Lia and Phill. I'm here to inspire you to find greatness in your life amidst all the chaos. Join me while I talk about my real life stories and finding out who I truly am beneath all the challenges life can throw you. Let's find connection in our chaos. Hey, welcome back. Phil's back for another episode. The two books that I chose this week go hand in hand with the episode we are doing today. The first one is called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, and it illustrates the 5 love languages, which we didn't even know existed. So they are quality time, physical touch, acts of service, words of affirmation, and gift giving. They go through all of them and you figure out which ones you have. You can have one, you can have all of them or multiple. Your spouse does the same and you talk about which ones you have so that the other person knows how to love you fully the way you need to feel loved. They're going to be different or they could be the same. The next one is called Hold Me Tight by Dr. Sue Johnson. This book is by a doctor, but we found it wasn't super doctory where you couldn't understand fully what she was saying.
I thought they gave some pretty good real life examples and explanations of how people might get into some sticky situations in terms of conversations that you have with each other and how you can get out of that. It just really laid out a nice roadmap for that, which was nice.
Yeah. So today's episode is about how we almost got a divorce and the steps we took in order to gain more connection so that our end goal wasn't a divorce. What life looked like then looks a lot different now. Back then, when we didn't know about the love languages and we didn't know how to communicate fully and we were just rolling with life, basically, with 2 children, we were basically roommates and just kind roommates with each other doing life together. I didn't feel much connection with you. We were just rolling with the punches, kind of like out in public. Yeah, you'd hold the other one's hand, but I didn't feel fully connected when we were doing those things. We were really good at our goals. So our end goal was to be both really good parents.
Yeah.
And we got our shit done, basically.
I think we kind of easily slipped into that. I don't think we just made a decision one day to not have a connection. It just happens
overnight,
over time like that.
Yeah.
You know,
especially when he was working out of town a lot, you kind of just slowly drift that way. When you're fully taking care of the kids and fully just doing life, you don't go on any date nights.
I feel like that's an easy trap to get stuck in. Very easily. Not necessarily noticeable very quickly.
So when we did get into a disagreement back then, it's like mind-blowing how different it is now. But back then, we were not ever really listening to each other. We were listening to respond. So basically waiting for him to finish what he had to say. I wasn't actually taking anything in. I was just waiting and having my point in my head just ready to say it. So the minute he stopped talking, whether he was taking a breath or he was actually done talking, I would then say what I needed to say. So I wasn't actually listening to him, and I don't know if
I was the same way.
Yeah. And we were interrupting each other. There was yelling. It was very not the greatest. It was very hurtful towards each other, toxic, but that's all we knew. Like, that's how I grew up. That's what my house looked like when my parents were arguing or in a disagreement. So that's what I did. And often I would leave or go for a drive or go for a walk, leave at the worst possible time. And then after that, we would just be really distant with each other, not talk. Sometimes if we did talk, sometimes we would not talk through the kids, but kind of like, can you give this to daddy? Which is not good at all. No. And luckily the boys don't remember that because they were so small. That was just not good. Deep down, we knew that it wasn't working for us. But the next logical thing in my brain was, this isn't working. We can't fix this. It's just who we are. We're different people. We need to get a divorce. I come from a broken family, so that was bred into me, I think. I thought it was inevitable for me to get a divorce. It was just like written in my story because that cycle was in my family. My mom's whole side of the family, every single person in there got a divorce. So I thought, this is inevitable. This it's going to happen whether I like it or not, because that's the cycle. I knew what it feels like to come from a broken home. I know what it feels like for the kid's perspective. I really didn't want that to happen. You come from a house where
I perceived everything to just be a really normal family. My parents never really
they stayed together.
yeah, they stayed together,
They don't
but
have
no, they don't have a divorce. But I'm not sure that, I think in my family, now that we've been through some of the things we've been through, I can kind of notice certain things that my parents did that we were doing, which was just focusing on external things happening in our lives and not so much in our relationship. You know, anything to kind of come together and focus on outside of the relationship was paramount. And we felt like we were getting things done, but not necessarily the issue at hand, you know,
Yeah.
fostering a healthy relationship with each other.
Yeah.
So that seemed very normal to me, is that we were just two ships passing.
Yeah.
Because that's all I really noticed. I didn't notice a lot of loving relationship examples from my parents.
Because that's exactly what we did. If we came into an issue, one of us, like me, I'd probably leave to go for a drive, come back, we wouldn't talk about the issue. Maybe Anthony fell down later on that day, scrape his knee, and that's what we would focus
Yeah.
on. Then that's how we would start talking again, and then not even talk about the issue ever again. It was like something else brought us back together to talk about. Now we know each other's, we're fine. Okay, he's not mad, I'm not mad. Let's not talk about the issue, because now we're bringing that back up and anger could be still there. But then the next time we get angry, we're not only angry on about this issue, but we're still angry about the issue we had 2 weeks ago.
That's right.
So the more you keep doing that, that pile just keeps growing under the rug. And then eventually you're just going to blow up and you're going to be mad about 10 or 20 different things instead of that one little issue that could have been
That's
fixed.
right. Major resentment there.
Yes.
Major
Oh,
there.
yes. So in there, I had started my own personal therapy. In my personal therapy, I was focusing a lot on our issues. That's when my therapist said, I think you guys would benefit from a couples therapist, so that when you're in your personal therapy, you can just focus on you, and then in your couples therapy, that's when they can focus on, because you're going to go home and you're going to tell your husband all the things we talked about, and he's not going to feel seen and heard because he wasn't a part of it. You're just telling me your side.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not going to go good. So that's what made us kind of branch out and start looking for couples therapists. Now, I do have to say that you're not going to find the right therapist the very first time, because
I mean, power to you if you do.
yeah, that would be amazing, but we didn't. And you kind of have to shop around.
Mm-hmm.
So you meet with the first one and you're just basically hoping it's going to work, but we went through 2 or 3 before we found the one that was the best fit for us. Our first one was a Zoom call from a guy in Toronto, and he did more harm than good for us. We didn't last very long in those sessions. He was basically playing us against each other, or he was like, either one session he would take my side fully and I'd feel fully seen and heard, and you would be like, well, what the heck?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't fair. But I'd leave like, this is great, right? And then the next session he would go to you, and then I would feel very misunderstood and very hurt, and it made it worse. So then we kind of talked about it and said that this wasn't a great fit for us. So then in the midst of shopping around, there's like a high demand for therapists. I do have to say, there's a lot of waiting lists you have to go on. There could have been like a month or 2 in there, which we were on a waiting list to see someone. We were still experiencing the same problems, the same issues, and we don't know how to deal with it on our own. So in meeting with the second one, when I first made the appointment, it was a couple of months of wait. By the time we saw her, I was done. I was fully done. I knew, I made up my mind that I wanted to get a divorce. So in my mind, I was like, what's the point of having this Zoom call? I'm done. I'm out. I don't know where you were at that point of wanting to try still, or were you pretty much done too?
I was very close to being like this. It seemed almost like a futile effort at that point because we weren't talking. It was not a good place that
I
we were in.
was sleeping in the basement for months and like it was not a good situation. So then when we had the Zoom call, I remember I was on my phone upstairs in our bedroom and you were in the living room on your phone
Yep.
doing the Zoom. Like we weren't even in the same room. We were on like all these different electronics
Yep.
and she was on her phone or whatever she was on. She started the session like open-minded and was
Yep.
like, okay, great. She looked at our faces and was like, oh my gosh, what's going on, kind of thing. I think I just said, I don't see a point in having a discussion or a therapy session at all because I'm pretty much done. I don't remember what you said.
I think once you had said that, it kind of solidified that this is the direction we're going to go. So,
So
what's the
then
point
it
of
was
this?
literally, the session was 5 minutes, if that, because she said, oh, so you've already made up your mind? And I said, yes. And then she's like, okay, well, we're done here.
That was
And
the
that
end.
was the end of it. Instead of like, I don't know. I don't know if they're supposed to try to keep you guys together or if you've already made up your mind, then that was it, right?
Mm-hmm.
She ended the call and a part of me was like relieved that we didn't have to have that session because I knew it was going to be super hard. But then a part of me was like, are you just quitting? And you got to think about the big picture and it's not just about you. There's children involved. So after that, where I was done, but I was on the fence too at the same time, if that makes sense
Yeah.
at all. We kind of just were, I talked about getting a separation first
Yeah.
to see if we could do it. But that would mean you would have to move out of the house or I would have to move out of the house. At that time, I didn't have family, but you still did. So you could have lived with your parents or I said I would live in the basement and you would have the upstairs. So we were trying to figure that out and how to do that all the while, like
Trying to keep it together with the
going to
kids and
work. I found that life was better when you were out of town because I didn't have to deal with the problems and I was more organized too because I just had to think about me and the boys. I thought if that's what my life is supposed to be, then that's what it is supposed to be. I don't know why or how we ended up finding our therapist now, but maybe we came back to talking about let's just try to coincide together on the same floor because this is very painful for not only me and you, but the kids are kind of confused. So I remember being at work on downtime and I was researching just therapists in Thunder Bay. One came up and I emailed her and she emailed me back saying that she has a 5-week waiting list and that she would get back to me in 5 weeks. I thought, okay, this is my last ditch effort. If this doesn't work, I'm calling it. We will go to check out some lawyers because I was already doing that at that point too. There was people at work that I was confiding in and they were giving me divorce lawyers, their numbers. I was talking to a lot of friends about it and you were talking to your family about it.
Yep.
Because I feel like if you're just really alone that you needed someone to talk to about this. But later on realized that the only people that you should be talking to about your marriage is each other and
That's
a
right.
therapist and not to involve everyone else because they're going to be biased. If I had a friend that didn't like you even a little bit, she would be telling me, oh, just leave him, right? And this is your life together. You figure it out together. We thought that nothing was working, but upon going to therapy, we figured out that it was a simple communication issue. Glad that we finally got in to see the therapist. We love her. She's amazing. She's been the best thing that's ever happened to us, I think.
She's changed our lives.
Yes.
And we are forever grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we've learned from her is how to communicate properly. She gave us these titles of these books to read. She is the one who told us, oh, what's your love language? I had no idea what that was. And she gave us books to read. She taught us how to communicate properly by using feelings. Like, it makes me feel this way when you do this, instead of, I hate when you do that. Like.
Or you always do this or something.
Yeah, that was a good one too, because I was stuck in always or never, black or white, which is unfair because how can someone always do this thing, right? Or never. So sometimes when you do this, it makes me feel this way.
It's kind of a game changer.
It is, especially when you use feelings involved. The person is more like, oh my gosh, I don't want you to feel how you're feeling. It, like if you say, it makes me feel unloved. That one's like, oh my gosh, my wife feels unloved by me. I don't ever want her to feel like that. So you're going to start listening more. Oh my gosh, I need to change something. It's a more gentler way of, because you're not really blaming either. You're just saying, when you do this one thing here. Like I can give a for instance. I remember when we were in conversations, how you would talk to me. It made me feel like I was a kid again and being belittled, but I wasn't being belittled. It's just how it made me feel. Like you were talking down to me, like you were my dad talking down to me. And so I would just be like, before I would say, I hate the way you talk to me all the time. And I just feel like a kid. And you're just like, I'm not doing that. I don't know what you're talking about. We would just get into this angry argument and nobody is understanding each other. But then when you go to therapy and you explain that, the therapist will put herself in, say, just my shoes and be like, oh, Lia, does it maybe feel like blah, 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 blah? And I'm like, holy cow, hit the nail right on the head. And then you're, really? You're more understanding. I was blown away the first couple times she said that. I said, oh, well, you understand now? Is because she was able to properly communicate and hit the nail on my feelings, like hit the nail right on the head of exactly my feelings. I didn't know how to do that. So she taught us how to do that. Now we can do that. Now we are fully understanding each other and where each other is coming from. But also during therapy, we learned about each other so much more than I felt like I didn't even know you.
There was certain sessions that we had where we learned more about the other person than potentially years of dating each other.
Yes.
Like deep-seated things that happened to you when you were kids, and like that.
We were married for 2 or 3 years and we didn't even know each other. It felt like after, and then once therapy came in, and because we had to do a full session on what was it like in your childhood and what was it and then you are listening to your spouse talk about how it made him feel in his childhood by certain things, and you're crying. It gives you so much more compassion for the other person because you did not know any of that stuff. Or of any of the stuff he went through, and he didn't know of any of the stuff I went through, because you're not going to be openly talking about that and trauma dumping to your husband. It's just something that you like tucked away, or I tucked away and never wanted to bring up because it's so painful. You were crying in some...
Lots.
I was bawling. Now you're listening to me bawling about my childhood, and now you're going, oh, and I made her feel like that when I did this. My gosh, you have so much more compassion for the other person that you never knew could be there.
That's right. And it just gives you a new perspective on when your partner says something to you, how it makes them feel, maybe reasoning why it makes them feel that way. And it's just, okay, I understand you now. Maybe I can switch this little behavior or this thing that I do because it has such a huge impact on you.
And how your family communicated and loved each other was a lot different than mine. And that's going to happen in every relationship, because no two families are going to be the exact same, how you were brought up and how they were brought up. So you only know what was modeled to you as a child.
That's right.
That's what you're going to bring into your relationship. So my experiences, I brought in. You didn't understand them. Like, what the hell are you doing? And you brought in some of yours. We learned about coping strategies and what those are and how come we have them. So a coping strategy or a coping mechanism is when you are triggered or upset in the moment. There's some people who are anxiously attached, or anxiously avoidant, or just an avoidant. I'm anxiously attached, but also can be avoidant. Depends. It's very tricky. But if I notice he's pulling away, because that's what an avoidant would do. If we get into an issue, you're going to pull away and it will trigger an abandonment wound in me, and I'm going to cling on tighter to him. And that will it'll trigger your wound, and you're going to pull even more away. So we were triggering each other all the time. I would become avoidant too and shut down, totally shut down, and not listen and be like a zombie, just staring into one, just listening to him belittle me or talk down to me, is how it made me feel. Because in childhood, if my stepdad did that to me, or my mom, I would literally just stare at the wall, just take it, wait till they're done and eat it, and then leave. I just would go into this other planet and act as if whatever they were saying would just bounce right off of me, but it didn't. You would take it in. I would just walk away as if it didn't register, but that's what I would do to you. There's no connection there at all.
No.
Just leave for hours or go wherever.
You can kind of see how the coping mechanism can kind of fuel the fire back and forth and back and forth. If I get nervous or anxious and want to run away and hide so I don't make things worse, that might trigger yours. So you might say something
to bring you back.
Say something maybe negative to bring me back and pull me back into the conversation. And now I get even more mad and start yelling. It's a vicious, vicious cycle.
It is. And we didn't even know we were doing that either.
That's right.
So our therapist showed us this cycle. And she said, it sounds like you in this moment were anxiously attached and you are avoidant. So this is how your dance is. And this is what's going to go. So in order to stop this dance or this cycle, you need to know when your coping mechanism comes in. And to do the work is to recognize it, first of all, because we didn't even know that was a thing. So we had to learn how to recognize it and learn how to stop it. But to stop it is to be vulnerable with the person, which is so hard to do because underneath all of that coping mechanisms, triggers, it's a fear that the other person's going to leave you or a fear that they don't love you. And we both ended up wanting more connection because we truly did love each other. We were going to get a divorce because we loved each other, basically, but we didn't know how to communicate that. And we thought the other person didn't love us. It was so crazy.
It was buried underneath a lot of insecurities
wounds,
and coping stuff. Once you can kind of sift through that and really understand the other person and hear what's going on underneath, it really is a game changer.
There's so many layers. That's what we learned too. The first layer is anger. Then the second layer is whatever, fear or shame and all the things, right? And then you get down to it and it's like connection and love. Crazy. In my family, therapy was considered bad, or there's something wrong with this person if they need therapy. So the people who go to therapy is because they know there's something in them that they want to heal and work on. But also we go to therapy to learn how to cope with the ones who don't. And the ones who don't are the ones who will constantly trigger us. We have to learn how to cope with those triggers. But also, if those people aren't going to want to even try to go to therapy, why do we always have to learn how to cope with those people? Right? So there's also like, yes, I'm going to go to therapy and I'm going to learn how to cope with that person because they don't want to. But the therapist will also say, you keep coming to therapy every session because this person is doing something to you and this person, but they're not hearing you. And are they willing to go to therapy? No. Okay. So now you have to, would you honestly want to come to therapy every single week to learn how to cope with that person? Or do you want to learn how to put in a boundary so that you can protect yourself? If they're not willing to do the work, then why do you need to go? You don't always have to be the one to fix yourself. You can also put in a boundary to be like, I'm going to start distancing myself from pain. This person brings on pain. Enough's enough. I shouldn't have to always be the one fixing me in every situation. Therapy isn't the only thing that's going to heal you guys. Therapy wasn't the only thing that was healing us. We also had to do the work because the therapist isn't always going to be available for you. So sometimes the therapist will go off on a leave or have to skip a session. I noticed we put all our hard communication that we knew we couldn't do just alone without the therapist, we would save them for the therapy sessions because we weren't actually willing to try. and put in the full work of doing it alone without having her there.
That's
We
right.
relied on her way too much because she understood us, like singly me, and she understood you. And maybe I didn't understand him fully. So it was good to have a third party there to be like, whoa, whoa, Leah, that's not what he meant. You know, we were scared that if we had these conversations alone, it would just end up in this big blow up. So we had to learn that the hard way because something happened in our therapist's life and she couldn't be there for months. We were left alone, and we obviously, you're going to have to be forced to communicate with each other without a therapist there. We did get one eventually, but we tried to do it alone and it wasn't quite working. So what we did was you tried to cover up the issue by planning this really nice evening. If there's a nice evening, you're not going to fight, because why would I fight if he planned a nice romantic evening at a hotel and go for supper? But for me, it was like, you're just putting a band-aid over it. I remember it specifically. It was this weekend. I think the boys stayed at your parents' house and then we were alone, which scared me at this point. I was like, I didn't like to be alone with you because there were so many issues that we just didn't address. You said, oh, I planned a weekend. I got this hotel room. We're going to go out for supper. And I thought, oh, that's nice. But what are we going to talk about? Because I know there's all these issues that I'm not comfortable with. And so what? We're just going to make small talk and it's just going to be like, how was the weather? How was work? And then nothing. And now we're sitting in a hotel room or we're sitting at a restaurant and dinner table just going like, how's the bread? Butter's good. Like, you know? And so I don't even think we made it to dinner. I think we went to the hotel room. We got the room. We walked in and it was very nice. Then we hashed it out in the hotel room for hours. We were just arguing and arguing and arguing, skipped dinner, missed the reservation, arguing and going around in circles, yelling at each other. And then you left. Your dad picked you up and then you unloaded on your dad. Then obviously his view of me is going to be skewed. He, I think, asked you, right, if you guys were going to get a divorce.
Yeah, it was very unclear at that time. It was not a healthy.
No.
The whole night was not healthy in any way.
You went home, grabbed your things, left your wedding band in the bathroom, I think it was. He left. I'm like, well, I'm not going to stay in a hotel room by myself. That was the most toxic thing ever. It reminded me so much of my most toxic relationship I've ever had. So I went home. I left. I didn't even let the front desk know. I was so embarrassed. I left through, like, out a side door. I grabbed my things and I left the key in the room and I went home. Saw your ring in the bathroom and I bawled. And that's how I knew that we weren't done. We weren't done. I didn't want to be done. It was just a horrible night and to know that we had a lot of issues still that we needed to learn and heal from. So I ended up calling you and you were at your parents' house. And I think that was the most vulnerable I've ever been, I think. And I said, like, I did not want us to be finished. And then you started crying and said the same thing. Then you came home with the boys the next day and that we started trying to find a different therapist until ours came back, which helped a bit, but it wasn't the same.
No, it was not.
We really click with our therapist. Like, she's amazing. But that was just also, like, you should really not involve anyone else.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, good if things are good or bad with your partner, it's only you and your partner that are involved.
Yeah.
You know, nobody else has a front row seat in your relationship with your partner.
No.
So why are you informing them? Why are you telling them all the ins and outs of their relationship?
We learned that if one of us was putting forth like 100% effort in all of our marriage and communicating properly and regulating our emotions when, when our coping mechanisms come in and we're really trying hard to stop it, but the other person isn't, it's not, oh my gosh, you're not on the same playing field anymore. because this person is listening or just waiting for you to stop talking so that they can put in their rebuttal. You're never going to win as the person who is really trying, because they will always have something else to say, because they're just arguing to be right. You're fighting to like see this person's point of view or perspective, understand it, validate, but you want to feel validated too. And if you are trying for them, but they're not trying for you, my gosh, you're just getting hurt. Why can't you do this for me? I'm doing it for you. You just give up, because there's no point. Arguing is just a waste of time, and it's a waste of peace. It's just a peace destroyer. It just destroys all peace when you argue. This person is arguing and losing connection. When you try to communicate to understand everyone, you're focusing on you don't want to win, you want the connection. So
when you're arguing, you're essentially losing that connection with that person slowly but surely throughout the argument. If that's your goal, that's a really one-way ticket fast to lose that connection with your partner.
Oh yeah. If your main goal is to be right, there's no connection there.
It's never going to work.
No.
If you're vulnerable with your partner, having this conversation, listening to understand, not listening to respond, it's going to foster that connection, because that's really the ultimate
goal is the connection.
At the end of the day.
It should be, really.
At least it should be, because if your goal is to be right at the end of this argument,
you're not going to have a marriage.
No, you're just going to be left by yourself.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
We've also learned that therapy is ongoing. I thought originally, okay, I'm going to go to therapy. We're going to go to therapy together. We're going to maybe do it for like a couple of months, and we're going to be healed.
Yeah.
We're going to have the best marriage ever.
Have a whole new life.
Yeah. It is ongoing. Yes, you can take breaks and you can take little pauses from therapy and practice what we've learned. Even if your therapist thinks like, okay, you guys have been good for such a long time. Do you want to spread them out? Do you want to take a break? That happens. We took a break. We paused for a whole summer, and it was great. But then we realized that we would get into these little arguments and we would need like general maintenance. Mm-hmm. So once a month or once every 3 months or whatever, right? We would do that. Whenever we would take a break or be really, really good for a long time and then come to therapy, our therapist would immediately look at our face and be like, oh, what happened?
Something happened.
Yeah, something happened. She can read us really good. I would be so hard on myself and our marriage because I thought we were so good for so long. And then all of a sudden it's like, we can't figure out this argument. We can't come to an agreement. I don't know what's wrong with us. Are we just destined to get a divorce? She's like, my goodness, don't put so much pressure on it. It's just a misfire, she would call it. I love that, because you have little misfires every now and then. It's not that your marriage is over and that you're always going to be compatible. Even the most compatible people will have arguments or misfires, and they have to learn to get through it. No. We had a misfire last night. We've been good for so long, and we had a misfire last night. So in our misfire, for me, I know I can say that my coping mechanisms really came alive and I gave in to them. I don't know about you, but I gave in to mine, which were at the moment, walk away and then get angry when he didn't follow, and then come back angry at more than one thing and pull away. You said last night when I came back, he noticed I was angry. He wanted to talk about it. I immediately shut that down. No, I don't want to talk. So I gave in to my coping mechanisms. But that's also being human. So yeah, I can have a standard of what I want our relationship to be like all the time, but that's impossible.
Nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect. You are going to give in to your coping mechanisms from time to time. That doesn't mean you're not practicing what you preach or
you're not compatible.
Because you can't do that all the time. But the work is to come back to it and do it. So in the morning, you had said, hey, before you go downstairs, I would like to talk about it. And I met him halfway, put in a boundary and said, I will talk about it, but you need to come downstairs. Okay, there is meeting in the middle, and you're both putting aside your coping mechanisms and you're doing the work. Because the minute he said, hey, I want to talk to you, do you think I wanted to talk? No, I was still mad. I was still hurt. There was lots of hurt there because underneath all of that, I wanted more connection, but I was angry up here. So we had to work through all the layers. And eventually, once we did talk about it and we became vulnerable in the moment, we figured out what the main reason was.
Became very clear.
Yeah, we worked it out. Just because you have an amazing marriage for 50 plus years doesn't mean you're not going to misfire in some areas, and doesn't mean you're not going to give into your coping mechanisms, because that's a learned behavior from childhood, because you don't want to be hurt. Because you give into them sometimes doesn't mean it's because that nobody's perfect. You can't be perfect doing the work 100% of the time all the time.
That's right.
That is impossible. I think the only person that it can do that is a machine, is not a human.
As long as you strive for consistency, just like anything else in life, lose weight or save money or, be better in your marriage, as long as you're consistently making an effort with your partner.
You're trying eventually, whether it be 2 hours, 12 hours, you're still trying. And to have compassion for yourself that, oh my gosh, I did give in to that, but I eventually did come around. You're still doing the work. It doesn't mean that she's gone to therapy for 6 years and she's still not doing the work. No, she's doing the work. Just on her own time, and to have compassion for, you have all the time in the world to do it. You just have to come back to it. To sum up this entire episode, it's not just therapy that fixed us. It was books, but it was also us. Both of us working together and putting in the same amount of work. You're going to see long-term success. Thank you for joining me on Navigating the Mess. Hopefully some of this resonated with you. If so, please hit the like and subscribe button or leave a comment. I would love to share the comments every episode. See you next week, same time, same place.